This is my second video about porting blowdown, and I have discovered some things that I would like to share with you. This is the title page of my previous video on the subject, and in it I talk about how when the piston uncovers the transfer port, if there's still pressure remaining in the cylinder, that transfer will not happen. It delays until that exhaust goes out the cylinder. Okay. It's a hindrance to the filling of the cylinder at high RPM. What I just realized in the last couple of days is that it also vaporizes the top portion of the intake charge in the transfer port, which has a leaning effect on the totality of the mixture, because even without burning it, which in really bad cases it does, it depends upon how much of a opening you have here before that pressure is relieved at the exhaust port. So even without burning it, just enough heat here will vaporize it. And when you completely vaporize, completely atomize that, it has a leaning effect. Because a well-balanced intake charge contains a certain percentage of atomized fuel, small fuel droplets, medium-sized fuel droplets, and large-sized droplets. They all have their part to play in this parade. Okay? So what happens when you're vaporizing that beginning portion? Well, you ride it and you say, man, I'm going to try a larger main jet. You go up and up until you find what gives you the best power. And so in my case, I'm working on a motorized bicycle cylinder. It's fully modified with a Mikuni 18 carburetor, a reed valve, an expansion chamber, motorcycle ignition system, balance crank, but still the porting is limited and the flow area of the reed valve is limited. So I'm not going to try to make it a high power, high RPM engine. I'm just going to keep it a moderate city bike. Yeah. So this is a graph from my porting calculator. And this occurrence right here is what's demonstrated here in the red graph. This line right here is a 1.0 line. Dipping below that, in this case, at 11,000 RPM, this engine, well, not the one I'm working on, shows a 0.89 on the red graph right there, which means it's 11% overlap. In other words, from the time that port starts to uncover until bottom dead center, the first 11% of that time, that pressure is still too much to allow the transfer, the 5 psi of the transfer to allow intake flow. And 0.9, 0.89 is pretty typical for motocross engines. So on my street bike, I've got like 0.84, so it's a little bit too much overlap. I should try to raise that exhaust port a little bit more. So this is a porting trace of my engine, the exhaust port, the transfer. There's only one transfer on each side, and these are 4 different porting arrangements. As you can see, I gradually increase the width of the port until the final version has 72.5% of the bore. The transfers were the same for these 3 right here. On this one, I lowered the transfers using JB Weld, and I created a boost port. And the difference in height of each one of these is about 0.5 millimeter. It goes from an exhaust duration of 161 to 164 to 166 to 169. So the red graph is showing how bad the combustion pressure overlap of the transfers is. You can see it's really bad to getting better, getting better, getting better. These lines right here show the end RPM, the max RPM that the engine was able to accomplish. And in this case, it had an overlap of 18 degrees, which is 82% of the transfers free from the combustion pressure. And the cylinder filling, which equates to torque, was down to 0.89 here, back up to 0.9 here, back down to 0.88, back down to 0.85. So the torque, you can see, is not a good predictor of what the final RPM is going to be. More in line with the end RPM is that overlap, what has to do with the which has to do with the blowdown. So the blowdown from the first to the last was 19 degrees, 20.5 degrees, 21.5, and 25. You can see we had a big jump here compared to the little 1 or 1.5 degree increases here. Another thing I learned from this experience is that you can see how long that overlap is affecting, even though it was still able to get enough of the intake charge in, it delays it, okay? And for some reason, this engine had the best power and this RPM range than any of these three. And according to my porting calculator, well, except for this one right here, these two have nice cylinder filling during that region of RPM. It's something that has to be you have to pay attention to when you're porting a cylinder. Of course, you motocross guys, you got almost the perfect porting already. The only thing you need to improve is the squish clearance for correct squish velocity and correct squish volume. Those, unfortunately, are almost always off on a stock bike. But the porting is very good. Some of the older motocross bikes, you could improve the porting. But the new ones, the last 10 years, don't touch the porting. So this porting program would be for old bikes or for mopeds or for motorized bicycles or for drag racers, any do-it-yourself situation where you have to port. So even though the blowdown was a useful gauge, it's something that works in combination with the transfer porting. And so what I finally had to do to be able to get a good prediction of what max RPM an engine would give is to also plot the horsepower. As you can see in this dyno graph here, horsepower is a function of torque and RPM. So what typically happens is the torque gradually increases, levels off, and then dies out. You see the horsepower increase until the torque dies out. So on these 4 graphs, you can see there's an orange graph right here. This is the needed horsepower for the speed involved. This motorized bicycle has no gear changer. It is a 1-speed bike. And so like at 7,000, the speed is something like 29 miles per hour. And on these graphs, the blue is the horsepower without pipe boost, and the red is the horsepower with pipe boost. And the porting calculator now can use the numbers from the pipe calculator, my expansion chamber calculator, to get these curves here. And if you don't also have the expansion chamber calculator, it offers some generic numbers you can use for this, but you can see there's quite a difference in the shape of the pipe power band according to the different porting arrangements. So when the red graph goes below the orange graph, that's when it no longer has enough power to continue to accelerate. So that happened here at 6,000 RPM. It happened here at 6,500 RPM. It happened here at 7,000 RPM, and it happened here at 7,300 RPM. So this is a new feature of the porting calculator, being able to let this shape here be according to what my expansion chamber calculator gives. And then you're able to move the needed horsepower graph up and down to match where you think it should be. It's like, you know, if you know the end RPM of the engine, then you just move that graph until it crosses the red line at that same RPM. And then you can make other changes and see how much more RPM you're able to achieve with the new porting. The reason I'm able to graph the curvature of this needed horsepower graph is because I did a mathematical analysis of this graph right here, which I got this graph by inputting the numbers for a lightweight motorcycle into a calculator that's online. It depends upon the speed involved with the RPM that you're using, and so the porting calculator asks for both of those, the RPM and the speed. Let me interject this here. I should have said before that the reason why this porting arrangement gave better power in the mid-range RPM is because with so little overlap here, the mixture is not being bothered by the heat, the combustion heat at the top entrance of the transfer port. And so even though I'm not able to enter that into the calculations, I did make a formula change so that lower than 0.9, like 0.9 is right here on this graph, it progressively worsens the torque. So I made a stab at trying to incorporate that reality into the porting program. So it was a good thing I did this porting study, focusing on blowdown. It enabled me to improve the calculations in the porting calculator. So there you have it, my friends. Blowdown is important. Unfortunately, I can't offer you a chart because the amount of blowdown needed depends upon the area of the exhaust port. because the more that area is, like in this case we're getting more area with a wider port, the quicker that combustion pressure leaves the cylinder. The only thing I can offer you is my porting calculator. It's cheap, just get it. You just double click on it and enter in the numbers that are required. If you need any help, let me know. I'm here to help. So that's it. Porting blowdown number 2. Thanks for watching.